We'll call the meeting to order.
Here, here. Try to confuse you a little. British area.
All right, is there any public here for comment? He's working.
Okay.
All right, not seeing any public, we'll move on. Approval of minutes, they went out ahead of time. Hello, welcome. Okay, we got
Funny guy.
a motion to approve, a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Yeah.
Opposed? All right. Number 4. I had made a commitment to research some reserves, and being a good administrator, I delegated it. So HEDPA went online and looked at 5 community colleges, including us, and this is of the close of the books last year. So we have Mount Sac is at 26.76, Citrus is at 24.51, Glendale's at 6.11, and Santa Monica's at 16.83. Okay,
Can you run through that again?
there's a handout.
They're
It's a
listed.
second to the last
okay,
page.
okay.
Yeah,
Oh, very nice, okay.
You can write them in if you want.
okay.
Are these mandated reserves? Or
No,
are these
this
just
is
the
what they are.
reserve, what they have?
I don't know what their board policies are. The research was what our other colleges' reserves, so we went and looked.
I looked up board policies on many of these colleges, and I did not find any that had a mandated reserve of 18%, and several of them were just the 5% that the state requires.
Okay,
I know LACCD.
yeah, the monster.
Yeah, they got a 10%. But they're only, I think, at a 6 or something.
Okay. All right. So is there any more discussion on this or any other requests on a specific college? We could look it up. We were just trying to get information, that market request.
I tried to find a state average, which.
That's a hard thing to do. That's when I delegated.
The person you delegated it to have any success?
Edva.
I couldn't find anything
Yeah.
on Data Mart. I actually went and got
Data Mart's a
access
joke.
on the 311, the finals,
Uh-huh.
and I just went and pulled the number for everyone one by one and looked at it.
Oh, okay.
Just take 5. That's the only, and there might be other places, but that's the only place that I could find.
We were looking for single colleges around the area.
Right, yeah, no, that makes sense. I think.
And I think the big issue is, it's not an issue of having a reserve. I mean, obviously, you have to have a reserve. What our issue is the fact that they're codifying this particular percentage and saying, we are going to keep this in our pocket, right, and run the college with whatever else we get. And we just had a discussion with the president, and I don't agree with that. I don't see any reason to have it written in a policy to say we have to have 18%. Maybe it could be 10%, maybe it could be 12%. But 18%, it's like, So,
Well,
and the timing is very,
Circumspect.
yes.
Well,
All the bargaining units are in negotiations, all the bargaining units are getting ready to propose salary numbers. And now we're told, well,
well,
if that argument comes across the table, it's not going to fly.
okay,
That's all we're saying.
let me take responsibility for the timing. The timing is we need to have these policies in place in order to borrow money. And I want to build the Serafian building, we're gonna have to borrow to do it. Now, it's not saying that, it does not have to say 18% to borrow money, I just need the policy.
Right.
We need to have a full-throated discussion on the campus through the different committees, groups, senates, and then through the board, and then what I need is a policy.
And again, we don't disagree with policy.
Right.
We don't disagree having a policy. Our issue is, and you know, I will be perfectly frank with you, a lot of this comes from dealing with this board for so many years and dealing with fiscal conservatism and saying, here we go again. And maybe we're, you know, a little bit gun shy because of that.
Right.
But, and maybe, you know, I'm not saying it's you, I'm not saying it's Erica, because I know most of this probably comes from the board. So that's the only thing we're concerned with.
Right.
So,
And the reason I went through 18% out as this, to start the discussion, that's where we are,
right.
and that's 2 months.
Well, but that's also adds a little bit of suspicion to the mix. It's like, oh, we have 18. Good, we'll keep the 18%, thank you.
Yeah.
Right, so,
Yeah.
right.
I
That's where we're
can't
at.
deal with the history.
Yeah.
I'm a new guy.
I know, yeah.
But
Yeah, you drink beer too, so you're all right.
I make it.
Yeah, right.
as far as the history goes, right, the school has had strong reserves for, you know, I don't know, the last 5, 6 years that you showed us in a budget subcommittee meeting. They were good, solid reserves. So I think that, you know, whatever the school is doing to set aside money is fiscally prudent, right? You're,
Oh, yeah.
I think some of your fiscal policies need to change for other reasons, but, but
We don't want to get into that.
but we won't address that here. But it's happening, right? So really, when I look at it, it's an attempt to, you know, to really tie the school's hands in one direction. And that would be that you've always got 18%, and that if we need to spend that money on something else, it's
Well-
not available.
Well, the policy going through it has been amended to say that to put in the policy that it can be spent for fiscal emergencies. And the AR that was updated at College Council. And I apologize, I don't have that in front of me because I wasn't planning on this discussion.
Well-
But it has been updated, and I'd encourage you to get a copy of that.
Yeah, we will.
So it's been amended
We
a
had a
few
representative
times.
there, so.
You did, yeah. And it's been amended a few times since this group first saw it, and I anticipate it to continue to be discussed and massaged. Okay?
No, I mean, at the last budget subcommittee meeting, Mark wasn't there, and I don't think other people were there. I made the point that the school is spending money on buildings, the school is spending money on equipment, and that's all well and good, but the school also needs to spend money on people. And the school has not been spending money on people, and there are areas where it needs to take a look at that. And I don't want to, you know, for this reason, I am really leery of saying, okay, well, we have to have 18% in a reserve. And I think that making some of those changes to address inadequate wages for the area aren't being looked at. And I don't think that's going to qualify as a fiscal emergency. So, is it?
That's not,
It's not what I think of as a fiscal emergency.
okay, I respect the table and what's going to happen at the table, and I'm not there, but I look forward to the good work that you and Mr. Valenci are going to do, and I have faith in the process. But fiscal emergency, normally negotiations should not be
They're
an
different
emergency.
things. Yeah, no, they're different
It
things.
should be a process.
They're different things.
But a tax revenue not coming in, property tax revenue not materializing, the state doing mid-year cuts, the various acts of God, as we call them, of building failures and things like that. That's what a fiscal emergency would be.
What about
No,
something
and
like-
that's what I would consider a fiscal emergency.
What about something like a bond not passing and us having to pay the rest of the money for a building? Would that be a fiscal emergency? And I'm not saying that
No.
facetiously, I'm seriously. I mean, if
No,
the bond doesn't pass.
No.
And we gotta put up the rest of the money for the
Well-
Serafian building,
Well,
is that?
that would be an if that was my plan, then I would not be doing a good job, I'll be honest with you. What my recommendation is that the district takes a COP and be able to pay for that COP.
What is a COP?
A certificate of participation. It's like a mortgage.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And they're long-term debts. You built parking lot structure number 4 with one, and that you'd be able to pay for that. But I would also put in recommend they put in the bond language, they could retire COPs. So we would borrow money and start the project and then pay it off.
Oh, okay.
Would be my
Like
that-
paying your mortgage off early.
Yeah, that would be my fiscal recommendation. Keep in mind, it is not my private club, and I work for the board. So, but this is what I'm laying out financially, I think is the best strategy to finance it. Yes, so that would not be an emergency. And if I was foolhardy enough to bank on the general public, I'd be the wrong guy for this job.
So we have a reserve at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens to that money? Does it sit in a separate reserve account with other reserves from previous years?
No,
Or
no, it
rolls
doesn't.
in? It rolls, or?
It is, on the balance sheet, it's not the cash. And at any point, the 2 CPAs can slap me and tell me I'm doing this wrong. But it's on the balance sheet. So we have expenses, we have revenue, we have expenses, and then we have our reserve for a set period of time. Then it rolls. So if you have an 18%, it rolls, that 18% still down there, and you have your revenue and your expenses.
And it goes into the revenue for the, or
It-
just
no, it
stays
sits at
there?
the bottom.
It sits at the bottom. Okay.
Okay?
But that is the beginning balance, right? For the
Yes.
next year.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
And so it's not money sitting in account gaining interest? Or it is sitting in an account gaining interest?
Sitting with the county.
With the
Yeah, the
county
county-
getting.
With all our money.
Which is very little
The
interest.
311 does show cash and it shows fund balance.
Okay.
So we can add a snapshot, so you can look at it if you want. We can look
Yeah,
at that
yeah.
at that
But if you
time.
say it carries over to the next year, right? And it's one of the revenues, that means money is being spent.
The fund balance is not part of the revenue. You can use it as a resource, but normally it's not.
So the money still is fixed.
It is carried forward year to year
Okay.
for emergencies.
And we could go through this, but it's more of a flow. So you have what ends, it flows to the beginning, you add in more money, you take money out,
Yeah.
and then what are you left with? So
But the goal is, so the overall goal of this would be to say that we start with a minimum of 18%, and we end with a minimum of 18%. And everything else we do in the middle has to be paid.
But that would mean the money is being touched though, right?
Well, I mean, it, not really. I mean, you could just leave, I mean, you could leave that 18% there and do whatever you have to do, and in the end, you still have
You
18%.
could do that, yeah.
yeah, unless something goes wrong and you don't, the revenue doesn't materialize, or you have an extraordinary expense.
Right.
And then the
There is one last
AR
one.
would also talk about what happens if you end the year with more than 18%. Then there needs to be a plan to reduce it down to the 18%. And what happens if you end the year with less than 18% because something happened? There needs to be a plan to restore it. And normally, we don't have a knee-jerk plan. Say for something comes up and we have to spend 4 or 5% of that. we wouldn't want to start cutting budgets and laying people off just to restore the 4%. We would say, over the next few years, we have to have a plan to restore that
Right, yeah.
that 4% we lost. So it becomes a cushion to manage the ebb and flow, and it shouldn't be a jerk if
No,
done
we would hope,
correctly.
yeah.
Yeah, really.
No, it really shouldn't. That's not,
That's not good management.
then the finances of the district would be interfering with the operation of the
Yeah,
district.
no, I mean, I agree with you on that,
Yeah.
completely on that, yeah.
And you could use the COLAs over a period of time to build up and, you do a plan. Okay. Any other questions, discussion? Have we met, Mark, have we met your needs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
What do you think, Mary?
Yeah, I think fine.
Because I'll delegate more if you need.
No, I think no, that's fine.
I mean, we just keep looking for that state, and if we find one somehow.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
You could join me in telling
send some
Data
private
Mart.
eyes up to the chancellor's office.
Well, I like to point out to the chancellor's office that the K-12's Data Mart will do it. So it'd be nice if,
Well, from what I understand, the
really?
community college data mart right now is a complete and utter mess.
Fabrication.
We had a conference this last weekend, and everybody has been saying, you can't find anything.
Can't
It's
find
like
anything
most of
there.
it's missing, or,
it's
Can't find anything on
incomplete
the
data.
yeah.
Okay. All right, the next thing, Jeff wanted to have a discussion regarding the state facility bond. Some of you may have heard that AB 48 has been signed by the governor. There was some negotiations on the state facility bond, but through the negotiations, the original state bond was 13 billion, and the governor negotiated to take it up to 15 billion with some caveats. It's 9 billion for K-12, and then 2 billion for community college, 2 billion for the state universities, and 2 billion for UCS, or the UC system. So it's unique in that it's including the higher ed with the K-14, and the feeling is it'll have a broader appeal to the electorate. It only needs a simple majority to pass. The last bond passed at like 55% in 2016, and that was a Prop 50 something or the other that it passed. So that's what we know about the state bond. It will be on the March 2020 primary. So that should have a good turnout, and a stronger turnout would be increase our likelihood of a bond passing. So, any discussions about that?
So we should tell our people to vote for that.
I would encourage you to do that as a voter.
So
The,
PCC is going to be going out for a bond as soon as March 2020?
no, it'd probably be the,
I was going to say, that's pretty quick.
yeah, if, right,
See
we
what-
back everything up. We have when the board last had the discussion, they said the need hasn't been demonstrated, basically.
Right.
So we have the facility master plan that we're working on right now to articulate the need and quantify the need. Because it's one thing to say we need to rebuild the building here, but how much does that cost? So we're going through the facility master plan, and our goal is to have it ready for the board by March, and then the board can make a decision on if they want to put it on the November election 2020. So that'd be about the soonest they could do it. If they try to rush it for March, they wouldn't be really
Right.
be able to do a campaign or, or
Right.
anything, so. I'm thinking that would be the soonest we could do that. So, and that's a decision at the board level. And then, of course, we would look to leverage any state money. What we do have currently in the pipeline is Building D, is in the state pipeline for retrofitting. So, Jane Addams. So. Okay. All right. Any other questions on bonds? I'll turn over to Hedva to walk through Q1 311.
Hi, just a bit of background, the State Chancellor's Office wants a snapshot every quarter. So you have the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and then the final, which I think I shared with you guys. The top section just shows.
This form's changed from before?
For the quarterlies?
Yeah.
Only one line has
Okay,
changed.
if you could highlight that when you
Sure,
get to it.
yeah. The top section is just pre-populated, the actuals from prior years. The state pre-populates that for us. Those are actual numbers. The actual for 18-19, although it's on the 311, obviously we haven't have the financials, but it shouldn't change. I don't think we'll have any findings on the numbers. And then for 19-20, we put what we project is going to wind up being for the whole year in the first quarter. At this point in time, we're on target with our budget. So if you look at the very bottom section 4, it has what's in the adopted budget and what we have in the current budget. The adopted budget was passed in September, and the annual current budget is any adjustments we have that we take through the board after the adopted budget. So there's minor differences between September and the end of September is when I did this for the end of September numbers. And in any case, we're still projecting what is our annual current budget is what we're projecting our actuals to be. Nothing major has come to our attention yet that there'll be a difference. They haven't put we're still using advanced apportionment. They haven't given us any different numbers from the state or anything like that. Our expenses are on target so far the first quarter. So the projected 19-20 is going to be almost exact what the current adjusted budget is that's on our books. In the middle, in section 2, we used to always populate the annualized FTES. They just changed it today. We don't have to anymore put the annualized projected FTES. They're going to get that now from the 320, so I don't have to report that. I don't have to bug Crystal anymore every quarter. Crystal, give me a number.
Make it up.
Make it up. The next section, 3, is the cash balance, and this is where I want to show you there's a difference between what we have in cash, which fluctuates wildly depending on what the state gives us, versus what's in the fund balance. And so you'll see that at September 30th, and by the way, this includes restricted and unrestricted. Everything else is just the unrestricted general fund cash. They want to know what's in restricted. So it's not going to be the same as what's in the fund balance. That's section 3, and I've already talked about basically section 4. There is a column there that has actual year to date. We populate what we have in our books as of September 30th, but a lot of it is timing, when we get money from the state, when we do expenses, and it all moves around. That's basically it. The next sections, it just asks if there is any contracts that were settled so far. I'm not aware of any. There's no major issues or concerns or debt, so I just answer no to all of them. Do you guys have any general questions? Just a snapshot picture. And it's just to say, not nearly in depth as the annual. the annual is that 48 pages I think I shared last time.
The total cash fund for this year was 5 million less than last year. Is there any reason for that? And I see that you project next year to be more than this year. Any reasons for those?
Are you looking at 1920?
Yes.
Versus, okay, 1920, that's the fiscal year which we're in now. That 44 million is the cash balance for restricted and unrestricted as of 9/30, as September 30th. And that's cash we have in the county, actually.
So we already have this one.
We have 44 million between the two. The 18-19 number was as of 9/30 last year. These are all as of September 30th in the prior year. And it will fluctuate as every quarter by several million. Typically in June 30th, well, we not run out of cash. The cash runs really low at the end of November to the beginning of December because apportionment's less until we get our property taxes. And the same thing in April and the end of June. We seem to have a lot of expenses for some reason at the end of June. I wonder why. Everybody wants to spend their money and cash seems to go down at that time.
People have to spend their money by the end of June, right? If they're gonna spend their money. If they have money left, don't they spend it?
Well, usually the purchasing, yeah. This year, and Mike can add to it. This year, we rolled a lot of encumbrances over, which is why you'll see the projected fund balance. The excess of revenue over expenditures is negative $2 million. And that was because there were money that we decided to put, of course, in the fund balance, but we encumbered those funds for the beginning of the year, for this year, to spend. So we are decreasing our fund balance by that amount. I just want to point that out. And we are projected to use it up.
And we hope we will be able to spend the money soon, so we don't have to carry it over to the end of the year.
This ends September 30th.
Correct.
That's our quarter,
Yeah.
July 1st to September 30th.
which is kind of a slow period for us. It's on our second quarter, we'll have more of the academic calendar finished, and we'll have a better idea where we're going.
To add to what he says, obviously, we don't have as much payroll in July, so that starts in August. So a lot of expenditures come later.
Okay, any questions? Now, I know everyone's really sad we're not gonna have Brac meeting in November or December, but we're going to be having holidays. The next Brac meeting is January 23rd, and I'll be really pumped up because we'll have a state budget, governor's proposed budget, the party begins.
That's right already.
So,
Oh, right. Yeah.
is there anything that members would like included in our January meeting? I know it's hard to think next semester, but if something comes up,
Well, I have a question about the process in terms of this question on the reserves in particular. So what's going to happen with that, and what's the timing on that?
you may need to help me on this one, but I believe it goes to
The board
Pol-
subcommittee.
Board Subcommittee on Policy, and then it goes to Board Subcommittee on Finance, or
Yep.
Budget and Audit, and then it goes to the board meeting.
Do you know when, though?
I
think we're aiming for the November board meeting.
board meeting, so the week before it'll be hitting the other groups, right? The
The
subcommittee.
two subcommittees, yeah.
Yeah. And I apologize, I don't know those dates. But Mary Thompson will know, and it'll be published.
She hasn't said anything about, because I'm on the policy committee.
Right,
so
yeah, I
we
know.
haven't-
I don't have it yet either. But at the last policy subcommittee, they were informed that there's a bunch coming through. But there's also a conference in Riverside they're juggling, so I don't know when it is yet. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Board subcommittee, the board.
Two subcommittees. So.
Two subcommittees.
Okay. All right. Okay. With that, I guess we're adjourned.